On home surveillance, a mother crashed. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Some technical difficulties there off the top. Thanks so much for streaming with us as we come on the air tonight. The cluster of COVID cases at the White House continues to grow, adding to the nearly 43,000 Americans who tested positive for COVID-19 today alone. 624 Americans lost their lives today. They join the more than 210,000 Americans killed by the virus this year. According to the New York Times, that's more than twice the number of Americans who will die from either strokes or Alzheimer's this year, and 8 times the number who will die from gun violence or car accidents. Tonight, that growing outbreak at the White House now linked to at least 23 cases, and the tentacles have now reached the Pentagon. America's top military officials are all in quarantine after a Coast Guard admiral tested positive after attending a White House event. On this busy Tuesday night, Jonathan Karl leads us off from Washington.
A surreal scene at the White House. Workers in hazmat suits disinfecting the briefing room. Much of the West Wing empty today as staff stay away from the coronavirus hot zone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And now the Trump administration's COVID outbreak has reached the Pentagon. Joint Chiefs of Staff forced to quarantine after Admiral Charles Ray, the Vice Commandant of the Coast Guard, tested positive today. It's impossible to say where he was infected, but Admiral Ray attended an event at the White House a week ago Sunday. A Pentagon spokesman says even though the military leadership now must work from home, quote, there is no change to the operational readiness or mission capability of the U.S. Armed Forces. It comes amidst a flurry of new cases at the White House, including one of the president's military aides. That's the person who carries the so-called nuclear football, a presidential valet, one of the people who serves his meals, and one more staffer in the press office. All told, 22 people who have been at the White House over the past 10 days have tested positive. As for President Trump, he's recuperating in the White House residence after 3 days in the hospital. His doctor released a short statement saying the president, quote, reports no symptoms and continues to do extremely well. The president's carefully choreographed return from the Walter Reed Medical Center was designed to project an image of strength and health, even as his doctors say he is not out of the woods. After he walked up the steps to the Truman balcony, the president dramatically removed his mask, even though he is still contagious, and there were others, including a White House photographer, nearby. He then stood there for nearly 2 minutes, gesturing out to an empty South Lawn. Once inside, he made a video to say he feels great. He didn't mention the First Lady or his staffers who have tested positive. He said people shouldn't be afraid of a virus that has already killed more than 210,000 Americans.
Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. Don't let that happen.
But the president had just spent 3 days in one of the most advanced hospitals in the world, receiving the kind of aggressive treatment available to virtually nobody else, including an antibody treatment that has been given to a total of less than 10 people outside of a clinical trial. His statement enraged some of those who have lost loved ones. Amanda Klutz, the widow of Nick Cordero, who died after 95 days in the hospital, offered this message on Instagram.
Have some empathy. Why are you bragging? Have empathy to the Americans that you are our leader. Have some empathy to the people who are suffering and grieving.
And we spoke with Aaron Birch of Montrose, Michigan, who lost his mother to the virus.
The statement that he made last night where he said that, don't fear coronavirus and don't let your life be, dominated by coronavirus. My life has been redefined by coronavirus.
But even now, the president is suggesting COVID-19 is no worse than the flu. Twitter flagged that tweet for misinformation. And so far this year, more people have died of coronavirus than have died of the flu over the past 5 years combined.
You don't get a pandemic that kills 1 million people, and it isn't even over yet with influenza. So it is not correct to say it's the same as flu. It has some overlapping symptomatology early on, but flu doesn't do the things to you that COVID-19 can.
Dr. Fauci making that big distinction tonight between the flu and COVID-19. Jonathan Karl joins us now. John, you noted there that the president seemed to be trying to project strength in his return to the White House, but is there any recognition from the administration that that's coming off perhaps as tone deaf to so many Americans?
You know, we've been seeing the same message echoed by some of the president's top advisors who seem to be essentially saying the same thing, although I am hearing from Republicans one circle out from the White House, close to the president, including senior members of the Republican Party in Capitol Hill, that are expressing deep frustration. Some of them are starting to do that publicly, including most recently Senator John Cornyn of Texas, who said that he thinks that the president let his guard down and not taking this threat as seriously as it should have been taken. Quite a statement from a member of the Republican leadership in the Senate.
That's right. And John, you're not only our chief White House correspondent, but you're also, you've headed the White House Correspondents Association. Just give us a sense of what it's like for journalists who are expected to cover this administration as they're having a full-blown COVID outbreak.
Well, it's been deeply frustrating, Lindsay, because the White House Correspondents Association has taken a series of measures to try to protect journalists and protect the White House staffers that journalists deal with on a day-to-day basis at the White House. We have instituted a mask requirement in the White House briefing room and the whole press area. The only place on the White House that requires masks is the briefing room area, and that was a requirement put in place by the White House Correspondents Association. And the only people who routinely don't abide by that rule are White House staff. So this has been a deeply frustrating and uneasy time to cover a building that now, let's face it, is basically a coronavirus hot zone.
Yeah, we could imagine. Okay, Jonathan Karl, thanks so much as always for your great reporting.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And for more now on the fallout and potential impact on our national security, let's bring in our Chief Global Affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz. Martha, this has nearly the entire Pentagon military leadership in quarantine, but so far the infection hasn't been widespread in those top ranks, right?
It has not. They are all healthy so far, thankfully, but this is the Joint Chiefs. That means the head of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, and President Trump's famous Space Force, head of the Space Force, all grounded, essentially. And, of course, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs. The only one who has not been quarantined is the commandant of the Marine Corps, and that's because he has been traveling, so was not with all the other chiefs in the so-called tank in the Pentagon. But they were also at an event at the White House, as we know now, about Sunday before last for Gold Star families. Those families, we've also reached out to some of those families as well. They were tested going in. They're all, so far as we know, doing well. But all these Joint Chiefs now, except for the commandant, are working from their homes. They live on military facilities. The chairman is and most of the others are at Fort Myers, which is just outside Washington, D.C., and they can work on classified information there. They can carry out their duties, but certainly can't really have staff with them because they're supposed to quarantine. And it really is, Lindsay, I can't stress enough how unprecedented it is to have all the chiefs working from home. Even when the Pentagon was hit on 9/11, they all continued to go into the building and carry out their duties there. But they are saying, and it really, they're saying that national security isn't affected at all, and I have to believe it isn't. Their antennas probably up a little higher, and there may be some looking for vulnerabilities, but more than anything, it's humiliating. It's really humiliating to have all these chiefs and all the senior military leadership of the United States having to work from home, quarantine, having had gotten or been exposed to COVID-19. I mean, you can imagine how we'd feel if somebody from Russia or Iran or North Korea, if their whole senior leader of the military was wiped out, essentially, for a quarantine period.
And as you said it, unprecedented, a word that we continue to use daily and weekly. Martha Raddatz, our thanks to you for your reporting. Staying in Washington now, President Trump today abruptly ended the administration's talks with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on another round of economic stimulus, saying in a series of tweets that he had instructed the Treasury Secretary to stop negotiating until after the election. To break all this down as far as what this means for the economy, let's bring in our chief business and economics correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis. So, Rebecca, there seems to have been some hope that Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin were making progress on a deal in recent days. So why did talks ultimately break break down? And what kind of impact does no additional stimulus before the election have on the economy?
Well, Lindsay, you saw the immediate impact of President Trump's tweet on the stock market, which tumbled more than 300 points as soon as he sent the news out that the talks would not continue and that he would wait until after the election. If you think about where our economy is right now, we're on a very fragile footing. While the economy has recovered about 11.4 million jobs that were lost during the pandemic, that's only about half the jobs that were lost in March and April when the economy was largely shut down. And if you look at the gains, the rehiring that's happening right now, it's slowing down. So where we had earlier in the summer 4 million jobs created in a single month, now we're looking at job creation in a single month more like 661,000 jobs. And the problem here is that as these things slow down, as they sort of potentially could sputter out, they need some juice. And that juice was supposed to come from the stimulus, the trillions of dollars in stimulus from the government. And we've now been hearing from a number of economists who have been calling for this, saying this economy on such fragile footing needs another shot in the arm, Lindsay.
And the Trump administration and Republicans are saying that the Democrats are simply asking for too much. But the Federal Reserve Chair today seemed to back Pelosi's position that more aid is critical. Take a listen.
By contrast, the risks of overdoing it seem, for now, to be smaller. Even if policy actions ultimately prove to be greater than needed, they will not go to waste.
What's your thought on that, Rebecca?
Well, the Fed chair is saying more is more, and that the bigger issue for our economy right now is not that there's too much money or that the money doesn't get the hugest return on investment in all of the places that it goes, but that it needs to be there, that the stimulus must happen, and that the bigger risk to the economy is not having enough stimulus and therefore stays in this period, like I said, a very fragile footing. The longer people stay out of work, Lindsay, the harder it is for them to get back into those jobs. And the biggest issue right now is the 26 million Americans who are currently collecting some form of unemployment benefits. You want to see a lot of those people get back to work, not only for their sake, and obviously that's a very important thing, but also for the sake of this economy being able to get back to normal.
Hey, Rebecca, thanks so much. And tonight, with Election Day exactly 4 weeks away, we have developments in the vice presidential debate set to go forward tomorrow night as planned, as the campaigns outline clear differences on their approach to the pandemic. Our Mary Bruce is on location in Salt Lake City, Utah tonight.
Tonight, he's sidelined at the White House with COVID, but President Trump is trying to reassure his supporters, promising them he'll be on the trail again soon and will be at next week's debate. Tweeting, "It will be great." His opponent, Joe Biden, says he'll listen to the health experts. If they say it's safe, he says he'll be there too. The stark differences between the campaigns on full display. Biden with this blunt rebuke of the president. Caption, "Masks matter. They save lives." From the fields of Gettysburg today, an exasperated Biden imploring Americans to take this virus seriously.
Enough. No more. Let's just set partisanship aside. Let's end the politics and follow the science.
Biden tested negative again today. Overnight, he said the president bears some responsibility for contracting COVID.
Anybody who contracts the virus by essentially saying masks don't matter, social distancing doesn't matter, I think is responsible for what happens to them.
The Biden campaign is making safety a priority, insisting that Kamala Harris be more than 12 feet away from Mike Pence at tomorrow's vice presidential debate here in Salt Lake City with a plexiglass barrier. But Pence, the head of the White House coronavirus task force and the second in line to the presidency, doesn't think the extra precaution is necessary. His spokeswoman saying in a statement, if Senator Harris wants to use a fortress around herself, have at it. But there are still questions about Pence's safety and whether he may have been exposed to the virus at the White House. With 4 weeks to go, tonight Biden is getting a boost from the former First Lady, ripping into the president's handling of the pandemic.
His willful mismanagement of the COVID crisis is just one example of his negligence.
Michelle Obama, in a 24-minute video, is urging Americans to vote like their lives are on the line.
Search your hearts and your conscience, and then vote for Joe Biden like your lives depend on it.
Michelle Obama making yet another appeal today. Mary Bruce joins us now from Salt Lake City, where the candidates will debate tomorrow night. So, Mary, is there a final answer yet on this plexiglass? What's the deal? Are there two partitions on the stage at this point, but one could come down?
That seems to be the story here. Right now, we just got our first glimpse at the debate stage. There are two pieces of plexiglass, one on each side, but that could change. The Harris team wants this. The Pence team does not. They say it simply isn't necessary because the candidates are already going to be 13 feet apart. They have both tested negative again today. We're going to have to see if whether or not one of these pieces of plexiglass may be coming down, Lindsay.
The plexiglass debate gate. And looking ahead, the president says that he'll be at that debate next week in Miami, but it's supposed to be a town hall. So is there any guidance so far on how that might be possible?
It is still on the books. The candidates both say they are willing to debate. Biden, of course, wants to do so only if the scientific experts, the health experts, say it is safe to do so. But there are a lot of variables still here. It's possible some of this could be done virtually, especially perhaps the questions that are coming in from voters. Right now, Lindsay, there's just too much up in the air. We simply don't know. So many of these details yet to be decided.
Mary Bruce on the ground for us in Salt Lake City. Thanks so much, Mary. And now to the COVID crisis and the new warning about the virus's airborne transmission. The CDC saying that tiny droplets can linger in the air for minutes to possibly hours and infect people who are more than 6 feet apart in some closed spaces. This as 36 states are seeing hospitalizations on the rise. ABC's Stephanie Ramos has more.
As colder weather forces more Americans indoors, the CDC is finally acknowledging airborne transmission of the virus is possible. After revising its guidelines 3 times, the CDC now warning beyond close contact, COVID can also spread in small droplets that can linger in the air for minutes to hours and infect people who are farther than 6 feet away from the person who's infected or after that person has left the space.
Airborne transmission is part of it, and we should always acknowledge it, especially in indoor settings with poor ventilation.
But infections are still averaging more than 40,000 a day and rising. Hospitalizations now climbing in 36 states.
This side of the unit is COVID patients recovering from COVID.
From Iowa to Utah, doctors are seeing sick patients who worry they won't make it.
They're in the ICU, all alone, no visitors nowadays, writing goodbye notes to their children. That's not something that's easy to watch.
For many survivors, it's a daily struggle. In Cincinnati, 47-year-old Christine Wilson has been hospitalized 3 times since testing positive for COVID in July.
Every day I feel overwhelmed.
The mother of 5 battled pneumonia, has lung inflammation, is on daily oxygen, and says she's on the same steroid as the president.
I've compared it very much to feeling like you're drowning. I constantly feel low grade, like I'm suffocating.
Lindsay, the FDA told vaccine makers they want volunteers monitored for at least 2 months after receiving the last dose. The New York Times reporting the White House was blocking those stricter guidelines, but the White House says that guidance was never blocked. Now, the director of the NIH today saying they will know whether one or more of these vaccines is safe and effective by the end of the year. Lindsay.
Stephanie, our thanks to you. When we come back, the dramatic rescue. Firefighters battling a dangerous wildfire hoisted to safety. And a man facing criminal charges over a deadly altercation that all started over a face mask. But up next, the mystery that has police baffled. Was a family of 5 killed by mistake, or were they targeted? Stay with us.
Most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC. The coronavirus. Everyone has concerns. And tomorrow, Dr. Jennifer ASHTON is here, helping you better understand it all, helping you protect yourself and your family. Your questions answered tomorrow
on Good Morning America.
Wednesday night on ABC, Mike Pence, Kamala Harris. Now, with so much on the line, the vice presidential debate, starting with a live event special with George Stephanopoulos and the most powerful team in politics. Then the debate, Wednesday night on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. These are your worlds. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown Hate, The War Among Us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Premieres tonight, streaming on ABC News Live.
On your carts. Get set. Let's go.
Get ready.
The team with the highest card total could be leaving with $100,000.
To shop.
Bam, bam, bam.
Till you drop.
Oh, mommy down.
Leslie Jones hosts Supermarket Sweep. Premieres Sunday, October 18th on ABC.
Hello?
This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff.
Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
The best of the Northern Fleet are heading south, but the locals know where the giants lie. The battle lines have been drawn, and the tide is calling. Wicked Tuna Outer Banks. New episodes Sundays at 9 on National Geographic.
There's a lot of anger because it's like I didn't let coronavirus dominate my life. It is dominating my life, and certain people have the power to let it dominate my life less and are choosing to double down on some kind of idea of it not mattering or existing. Seeing anyone celebrate when you've lost so much, so seeing these guys hug and kiss and, hang out indoors, outdoors, and, it felt literally like dancing on graves, to think of what this household feels right now and what we're going through. A lot of this process is just convincing yourself you're not crazy because you lost someone so dear to you and people just moved on, and seeing the leadership, seeing somebody who has this themselves kind of just disregarded seriousness, disregard what it's done to families and to people around the country. I don't know, it's kind of like, it's bewildering.
Bewildering voices of the COVID crisis right there. And now we turn to an unsolved murder mystery in Colorado that has a community asking for help. A family of 5 mysteriously killed their house set on fire, and the eerie masked men caught on surveillance camera. Our Clayton Sandell has the details.
In this seemingly picture-perfect suburban neighborhood, there is a sinister reminder of extreme tragedy.
This is fully involved. We can't even make entrance to search.
I really hope they got outside. I really hope they got outside.
I mean, we just saw all the flames coming out. We were in complete shock.
3 people escaped.
But after the extinguishing efforts, our crews found 5 fatalities in the lower portion of the building.
5 members of an immigrant family from Senegal, including 2 children, killed in a fire investigators say was arson.
It was then converted into a homicide investigation.
Today, flowers left behind are dry and faded. The charred house stands as a daily reminder of a mystery that 2 months later remains unsolved.
We are worried. We are extremely worried. We don't know why they did it, who did it.
This is one of the worst crimes against immigrants and against Muslims in the history of Colorado.
Jabril Giol, known as Jibby, was 30. He came to America in 2012, graduating Colorado State University with a degree in civil engineering.
And he was like, I just want to be an engineer. My goal is to really
become the best engineer I could be. He did never settle for being average. He wanted to be outstanding at everything he did.
He became a U.S. citizen working for a construction company on a huge freeway project.
We lost just a huge leader in our community, and also someone that we all considered like, you know, a little bit of the example to follow, because he got a great job, was married with his child, and it's just really heartbreaking to lose somebody like that.
Earlier this year, Jibby's wife Aja and their daughter Khadija, just 22 months old, joined him in Colorado.
Family meant everything to him, pretty much, like everything.
Khadija, just a bubbly child and very happy.
Friends say Jibby was generous and outgoing, the kind of husband brave enough to sing his wife a very public happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Aja was such a beautiful soul. Oh my gosh. She wanted to go back to school and become a nurse, and that was her goal, and I know Jibby was supporting her 100%.
Jibby's sister, Hassan, had also just arrived from Senegal. She was working at Amazon. Her daughter, Hawa, was just 10 months old. By all accounts, the family had never been in trouble and was thriving.
What did this community lose?
We lost people who were really community-oriented and who not only cared about themselves, but cared about the community and were examples of the American dream.
These are the three people investigators say set the fire, captured by a neighbor's security camera, faces hidden behind eerie masks, driving this dark sedan.
They were wearing masks and hoodies, and it just looks haunting. It looks like it just came out of a horror movie. Just very crazy.
But despite dozens of tips, help from federal agents, and a $40,000 reward, investigators say there are few solid leads.
Have you been able to narrow in on any kind of motive?
That's one of the frustrating things as well. So no, I don't have a specific motive.
With few answers and no arrests, frustration is growing. Along with fears the family may have been targeted because they were black, Muslim, immigrants, or all three.
And while it may be just some sort of cosmic coincidence that these individuals just targeted these folks as a random act of violence, common sense would tell you that there's a lot more here.
There's concern that this is either racially based or based on the religion of the family, who are Muslim. We don't have anything to suggest that they were targeted for those specific reasons, but it's not something that we've ruled out as well.
Denver police say the case is a top priority.
This case has the full attention of the Denver Police Department, the resources of the Denver Police Department. We're doing everything we can to make sure that this case gets the attention it deserves and this family gets the justice they deserve.
But as time passes, the small, tight-knit Senegalese community here worries the case will fade without answers to the most important questions.
Why? What have they done? This loving family.
We're not satisfied, and every day that goes by and these people are still out there, we don't know who's going to be the next victim. 5 precious lives was taken away, including babies. So anybody that's out there, if you have a heart and you care about human being, come forward and just help us solve this crime.
Clayton Sandell, ABC News, Denver.
Our thanks to Clayton for that. Still ahead here on Prime, the monster hurricane churning toward the Gulf Coast. News on the criminal investigation launched into the personal income taxes of the NRA leader. And with President Trump today making false comparisons between COVID-19 and the flu, we break down the critical differences. But a somber tweet of the day, Wolfgang Van Halen delivering the sad news that his father, iconic guitar player Eddie Van Halen, has passed away after his fight with cancer. More on that ahead.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
Do you trust him? I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working out?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying.
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
Breaking news, context, analysis.
With today's extraordinary news cycle.
Now is the perfect time for ABC News Live.
A streaming news game changer. The time is now for ABC News Live. Get it, streaming everywhere.
Cross my office off the list.
What if we picked for each other?
Please stop.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. These are your worlds. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Sex, gambling, fraud, betrayal, and murder. Cutthroat Inc., the podcast. A family on a mission to find their son. A year's worth of conversations with the killer. Cutthroat Inc. Subscribe for free now on your favorite podcast app.
We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. No bull, no spin. Now imagine getting your news like that. Just give it to me straight. ABC News, straightforward.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown Hate, The War Among Us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Premieres tonight, streaming on ABC News Live.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, free on Apple Podcasts.
COVID dominated my life for more than 1 month while I was in the hospital. Being taken care of wonderful doctors. COVID dominated my life from now on because I spend more of my time in therapy and doctor appointments. My future has totally changed because it has been dominated by COVID. This is not about politics. This is how a life can change because COVID. It can dominate you.
It can dominate you. Welcome back, everyone. President Trump today made false claims on social media comparing COVID-19 to the seasonal flu, which prompted Facebook to remove his post and Twitter to label it misleading. As coronavirus cases surge across the country, we take a look at why this virus is far more deadly than the flu by the numbers. Between 12,000 and 61,000 Americans die each year from the flu, according to the CDC, while more than 210,000 Americans have already died from COVID-19, and we still have about 3 months to go until the end of this year. Also, there are a number of treatments for the flu, but zero FDA-approved COVID-19 treatments. Only 10 or fewer patients outside of a clinical trial have gotten the unapproved but promising antibody cocktail President Trump received. And another promising drug, remdesivir, is authorized under emergency use and requires hospitalization. Unlike COVID-19, the flu also has an approved vaccine. Last year, it prevented an estimated 6,300 deaths and 7.5 million flu illnesses, according to the National Foundation for Infectious Disease. But still, only 48% of U.S. adults got a flu shot last year, and only 59% say that they plan to get one this year, even though the CDC recommends it for everyone 6 months and older. Health officials say it's especially critical to get a flu shot this year and warn that a so-called twindemic, the overlap of flu and COVID-19 outbreaks, could overwhelm hospitals and increase the risk of death. Still, lots more ahead here on ABC News Prime. The ABC News exclusive, the New Jersey judge opening up to Robin Roberts about her son's murder, the special vow she's making tonight. Also, the key decision the Supreme Court made late last night that could have an impact on a close Senate race. We explain in tonight's Ballot Watch. And 3 scientists are celebrating a Nobel Prize tonight, the discovery they made to get this prestigious honor. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Now, when it matters most, the straightforward facts. ABC News is America's #1 news. #1 in the morning, #1 in the evening, and the #1 show on all of television. #1 in late night versus the competition. #1 in politics versus the competition. The #1 daytime talk show. And #1 in streaming news. Most trusted, most watched. ABC News is America's #1 news. Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True Crime 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC. Now, with so much on the line, ABC News, America's #1 news, is right there for you live on Hulu with stories of strength, stories of hope. Because now, when it matters most,
Hulu has live news.
Hulu has live news.
Hulu has live news, and that news is ABC News.
ABC News Live on Hulu.
ABC News Live on Hulu.
watch the news you need.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Streaming to all Hulu subscribers right now. The coronavirus. Everyone has concerns. And tomorrow, Dr. Jennifer ASHTON is here, helping you better understand it all, helping you protect yourself and your family. Your questions answered tomorrow.
On Good Morning America.
Wednesday night on ABC, Mike Pence, Kamala Harris. Now, with so much on the line, the vice presidential debate, starting with a live event special with George Stephanopoulos and the most powerful team in politics. Then the debate, Wednesday night on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. These are your worlds. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
The best of the Northern Fleet are heading south, but the locals know where the giants lie. The battle lines have been drawn, and the tide is calling. Wicked Tuna Outer Banks. New episodes Sundays at 9 on National Geographic.
Cross my office off the list.
What if we picked for each other?
Please stop.
Right now, at this defining moment in America, with so much on the line. From ABC News, a groundbreaking month-long event every night taking on this moment for America. Turning Point, the Nightline event. Late night on ABC.
The coronavirus spreading further across the government. The Vice Commandant of the Coast Guard, the latest to reveal he has tested positive. He was at the White House as recently as 10 days ago and is now in quarantine. Nearly all of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are also self-quarantining as a precaution. The news coming amid a COVID outbreak within the White House, starting all the way at the top with President Trump. At least 20 people who were near or around the president last week have now tested positive. And yet Trump is once again minimizing the threat of the virus to the public. The president falsely claiming COVID is no more deadly than the seasonal flu. That post getting flagged by Twitter as untrue and taken down by Facebook. More than 210,000 Americans have died from COVID-19, and cases are now rising in 32 states, while nearly 11 million Americans remain out of work since February. But President Trump delivering this message in a promotional video.
Don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines.
Joe Biden releasing this social media video in response, reiterating that message again today during a campaign event in Gettysburg.
Wearing a mask is not a political statement.
It's a scientific recommendation.
President Trump ordered a halt to negotiations with Democrats over another stimulus package and to instead focus on approving his Supreme Court nomination. Stocks had been making strong gains most of the trading day, but then the president's announcement spooked investors. The Dow dropping 375 points to close at 27,772.
Sometimes our heroes need rescuing, and this one was caught on camera. 4 injured firefighters rescued from the wildfires in Butte County, California. A Florida Highway Patrol chopper airlifting the firefighters out of the North Complex fire. All 4 are members of the National Guard. One suffered a knee injury, the other 3 treated for heat exhaustion. All are expected to fully recover.
A fight over a face mask outside Buffalo has left one person dead and another facing homicide charges. Prosecutors say 80-year-old Rocco Sapienza confronted a man for not wearing a mask. That's when 65-year-old Donald Lewinsky allegedly shoved him hard. He fell, hit his head, and died 4 days later.
New trouble for the head of the National Rifle Association.
The IRS is investigating Wayne LaPierre, who was paid more than $2 million a year by the NRA. LaPierre had already been charged in a civil lawsuit by the New York Attorney General with misappropriating $64 million of NRA funds. When the lawsuit was announced, the Attorney General said she was referring the matter to the IRS to decide whether LaPierre had also evaded personal taxes. He told the Wall Street Journal, which first reported that LaPierre was under IRS investigation, that he was unaware of the inquiry.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has today decided to award the 2020 Nobel Prize in Physics.
3 scientists sharing this year's Nobel Prize for Physics: American Andrea Ghez, German Reinhard Genzel, and Brit Roger Penrose, all being honored for their work on understanding black holes.
I'm just delighted to become another role model to encourage the next generation of women to pursue their passion.
Congratulations to them. And switching gears, we turn now to the fatal police shooting of Jonathan Price in Wolf City, Texas. The officer now charged with murder, as witnesses say Price was only trying to defuse a domestic dispute when he was tased, then shot. Tonight, the officer is behind bars on $1 million bond. ABC's Marcus Moore has the details.
Growing questions tonight about why a 31-year-old black man was shot dead by police after attempting to break up a domestic dispute at a Texas convenience store. Witnesses say Jonathan Price was trying to defuse an argument inside the Wolf City store on Saturday. When Officer Sean Lucas arrived, investigators say Price, quote, resisted in a non-threatening posture and walked away. Lucas tasered Price, then shot him.
3 gunshots went off, and I turned and looked at them, and I said, a cop just shot somebody.
A lawyer for the family says Price was unarmed. Tonight, his mother demanding justice.
Just let him feel the pain that I'm feeling. My son got life. I want him to get life.
Lucas is now charged with Price's murder.
We don't think that he should be ever free again. There was absolutely no justification for the use of force.
Price has been described as a leader in this small town. His death sparking marches overnight.
More protests after yet another name added to this dreaded list. Our Marcus Moore joins us now. Marcus, Lucas is now charged with murder, but tell us about the preliminary investigation of the shooting.
Well, what we've heard, Lindsay, from authorities here in Texas is that their preliminary investigation has found that they say that Lucas, his actions that night were, quote, not objectively reasonable and that they essentially were not justifiable. As we heard from authorities and also witnesses, there's every indication that Mr. Price, after the police arrived on the scene, did resist, but he was walking away. And again, as they said, in a non-threatening posture. And that is when authorities say Lucas first used the taser and then shot Price, who later died.
And Marcus, there's also possibly video of the fatal shooting.
Yes, that is what we've heard from the lawyer who represents the Price family. He says that there is video, and he wants that video released. And what's interesting here is that in this particular case, the authorities have released very little information. They have not even confirmed that there is video and exactly what that video shows, Lindsay.
Marcus Moore, our thanks to you. It could be the most litigious election in history. Hundreds of cases are now making their way through our court system that could impact how millions of Americans cast their ballots in the coming weeks. And a major decision by the Supreme Court last night could have an impact on a close Senate race. Our Devin Dwyer is here to explain it all to us in tonight's Ballot Watch. Devin, okay, so the Supreme Court weighed in on a South Carolina case last night. Tell us what happened and why it matters.
Well, Lindsay, South Carolina is one of 11 states that require a witness to sign your absentee ballot. They've had that law in place for 60 years as a security measure. But because of the pandemic, Democrats in South Carolina challenged the requirement. They thought that it could be too dangerous to have people coming together or close contact to be that witness. And a federal court in September last month agreed, and they struck down the provision. But the U.S. Supreme Court last night reinstated it. Justice Brett Kavanaugh had this to say. Take a look at his statement explaining why the court took this action. He said that state election laws, such as South Carolina's, should not be subject to second guessing by unelected federal judges. He also said, as has been the Supreme Court's approach of late, that federal courts ordinarily should not alter election rules in the period so close to an election. Now, you may be wondering why this matters in South Carolina. It is not, of course, a presidential battleground. Well, this year it does have a very close and important Senate race. Senator Lindsey Graham is up. Both sides say every vote will count, and this, Lindsey, is certainly going to make things a little more complicated in the home stretch.
And this, of course, is not the only challenge that the justices may have to take up in the next few weeks. What other election issues do you have your eye on?
Oh, my gosh. The election lawsuits are already piling up. They seem to be multiplying by the day. Over 300 already across 44 states, and we haven't even started counting the ballots yet. Most of the challenges so far have been dealing with these absentee ballot issues. There's a big case that just was filed today in Florida after the state's voter registration system crashed last night just at the deadline. There's a lawsuit now to extend that. But one of the biggest cases to keep an eye on, Lindsay, is out of Pennsylvania. The Trump campaign is suing there to roll back a lower court decision that said that mail ballots that arrive 3 days after Election Day can be counted. We'll see if the justices of the Supreme Court take that up. Of course, big stakes in Pennsylvania.
And of course, all this comes as the court has just 8 justices. What are the potential implications of that?
Right. They're down a body after the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which means there is a solid conservative majority, 5-3 on the court right now. It also raises the potential that we could see a split, a 4-4 split in a close case. Say if Chief Justice Roberts were to join the liberals on a close call, we could see that division. But if there's one thing I've heard from the justices in the past year, Lindsay, it's that they all agree less is more. Less involvement in politics, if at all possible. Sometimes it's unavoidable, as we've seen, but in these next few weeks and the weeks after the election, we will see how much they're eager to take up and what cases they might decide. A lot of flashbacks to Bush versus Gore. That was 20 years ago,
right,
Lindsay.
Those dangling chads. All right, Devin Dwyer, thanks so much.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And turning now to Hurricane Delta as it barrels toward Mexico tonight and threatens the Gulf Coast. Our Ginger Z is tracking the powerful storm. Ginger?
It is unbelievable to think that we could see our 7th landfalling storm on the Gulf Coast this season. The 4th hurricane. 2 of them, if this goes into Louisiana, then would be making landfall in Louisiana. That hasn't been done since 2002. But let's go ahead and talk about this storm, Delta, that is a buzzsaw right now. It is headed west-northwest toward the Yucatan Peninsula. It will buzz over, and that's going to act as a bit of a kind of just a little bump before it gets back into the Gulf of Mexico, because once it's there, it's still a major hurricane. It stays strong. It's driven mostly by a high-pressure system to its west. The farther that thing nudges it, the more west we'll see this track go. Either way, if you are anywhere from Port Arthur and Beaumont over to Cameron, Lake Charles, Morgan City, Lafayette, New Orleans, over to even Gulfport, I want everybody through there to be on alert because you are still in that zone or that cone that could be of concern. I also think you need to know that the push of water is going to be huge. You'll start to see this thing broaden and the impacts will be broader because it won't be quite as tight. The good news, though, it will be fast. So even though we will end up with some places in the 6 to 12 inch range for rain, it is going to get picked up and kicked out quickly, Lindsay.
No rest for the weary. All right, Ginger, our thanks to you. And we're turning now to the heartbreaking story of one family whose son was murdered on the steps of their own home. Our Robin Roberts sat down with federal judge Esther Salas, who opened up about her only child. He was killed at the front door of their house by a lawyer disguised as a delivery man. For the first time, she's talking about that tragic day and how she's honoring her son.
Danny was the love of our life from the moment he was born. We struggled to have a baby. I had 4 miscarriages, 3 before him, 1 after him. From the moment that little boy came to this world, he was the center of our universe.
But their world turned upside down on July 19th. Federal Judge Esther Salas and her husband, Mark Andrel, had just spent the weekend celebrating Daniel's 20th birthday with friends at their home in New Jersey, when everything changed in an instant.
July 19th. Walk us through that day.
Well, you know, my son has always wanted to spend critical holidays and birthdays with us. And so he wanted to marry those things, his friends and his parents. It was a great weekend. And at some point we ended up in the basement, and Danny was downstairs talking to me, as he always did. He said, "Keep talking to me, Mom. I love talking to you." And it was at that exact second that the doorbell rang. And before I could tell him, let Dad handle it, he shot up the stairs. And the next thing I hear is, boom. And then I hear, no. And then I hear a series of bullets. And I just, what is happening? So I remember running upstairs, and it was so loud. I almost thought it was like mini bombs or something. And then I saw Danny lying perpendicular to the door, holding his chest. And I saw Mark on his hands and knees at the porch. He had crawled to the porch to try to get the license plate or something of the person. I just got on the floor and I just saw my son. And I know at some point Mark was screaming, "Call 911," and I tried to do that. And I lifted his shirt and I saw the bullet hole. And Mark managed to crawl back, and we were both just watching it fade away.
Daniel taking a fatal bullet from a man posing as a delivery driver. The gunman shooting Judge Salas's husband 3 times before fleeing the scene. Fortunately, Mark survived.
I think the hardest injury right now is to his heart. They were so close. He talks about Danny as his best friend.
The FBI identifying disgruntled lawyer Roy Den Hollander as the alleged shooter. He was found dead 1 day later with a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Do you recall any dealings with this man?
Vaguely, vaguely. It had been months, if not a year, when he last appeared before me. And
had he ever threatened you in any kind of way?
Nothing. There was nothing. You know, my husband and I sat for an FBI debriefing. I know that he hated me because I was a woman. He hated me because I was Latina. And that was the source of hate. That was, you know, what I had done was I had the nerve to become a judge. If he didn't do it that day, he was going to do it.
When you posted that video, Judge Salas, just weeks after your son was killed, and you were demanding more protection for federal judges.
Let me be clear and tell you firsthand, this is a matter of life and death.
What can be done?
We start with trying to eliminate the personally identifiable information, what they call the PII, getting that off the internet. There's the idea of increased home security systems. And the reason I did it was because I said I have to protect and at least help to protect my brothers and sisters on the bench. And how do we do that? We do that by never letting anyone forget Daniel, never letting anyone forget what he did for us. Never letting anyone forget the high price we all pay if indeed the right things aren't done.
Judge Salas now relying on her faith to move forward, finding the strength to forgive her son's killer.
And from the moment I did that, I felt lighter. You know, hate is heavy, love is light.
What can you say to someone who's watching and going, that's wonderful that you're able to find this strength and this faith, but it's not within me?
You need to, whatever your faith is, hold on to that. Whatever you need to do, get the help you need.
And moving forward for you, being on the bench is a lifetime appointment.
Yes.
Are you planning on returning to the bench?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This man took the most important thing in my life. I can't let him take anything else.
We commend her resilience and her reminder to us all that hate is heavy and love is light. Our thanks to Robin Roberts for that. Still ahead here on Prime, mourning the loss of a music legend. Stay with us.
On your carts. Get set. Let's go.
Get ready.
The team with the highest card total could be leaving with $100,000.
To shop.
Bam, bam, bam.
Till you drop.
Oh, mommy down.
Leslie Jones hosts Supermarket Sweep. Premieres Sunday, October 18th on ABC.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come. I'm very thankful that these men are fine.
Tuesday, October 13th, we respect your wishes. The Bachelorette is back.
This is the perfect place to fall in love.
But respect the rumors.
Do not ever talk to me like that.
It's true.
What?
This is the most shocking season ever.
Makes me sick.
That's crazy. Do declare.
Congratulations, you've just blown up The Bachelorette.
The Bachelorette season premiere Tuesday, October 13th on ABC.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy?
I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird.
Please stop.
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown Hate, The War Among Us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Premieres tonight, streaming on ABC News Live.
Listen to that talent, an outpouring of grief for a titan of rock tonight. Eddie Van Halen, the game-changing guitarist, has died at the age of 65. With his namesake band, Van Halen became one of the most iconic guitar players in modern music. His pioneering style, seen here in the song Eruption, influencing countless musicians. His band had a slew of chart-topping hits like Dance the Night Away, Jump, Panama, Hot for Teacher, and Right Now, just to name a few. The Recording Academy released a statement saying Van Halen's explosive guitar playing and approach to the musical process solidified him as an undeniable force in his field and forever established his place as a true guitar hero. Van Halen's son and bandmate Wolfgang said this about his father: "He was the best father I could ever ask for. Every moment I've shared with him on and off the stage was a gift. My heart is broken, and I don't think I'll ever fully recover from this loss. I love you so much, Pop." And before we go tonight, our image of the day: the White House cleaning staff in hazmat suits spraying down the briefing room. There are now at least 24 COVID cases connected with gatherings at the White House. Our thanks to all of the essential workers out there tonight for all of the hard work that they do each and every day. That is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us, and good night.